you draw from a resource that seems very spiritual in a lot of ways.
Yes. I believe life is pretty much a spiritual path, and we're all on this path, and it's pretty cool. You can have a dream of life which is negative, fine. Or you can have a worldview that is positive, and what you project as a human being, you thought about first. You definitely thought about it.
This is interesting. Let's move on down to Eric.
Well, me,
resources you draw from.
Me, a lot of things of what I draw is from family. I mean, I've come from a very tight-knit family, so everything that I've really been brought up and the values that were brought to me really started with that. So honesty, loyalty. My family were very entrepreneurial, so they gave me a lot of spirit to go after things and not to be afraid of what I want to go after. So a lot of things that I drew from myself personally came directly from my family. From that, I'm a real visual person. So anything that I see and I look at, I really try to interpret it into myself as to what I do and what I portray and what can become. So, you know, the reality for me is really just who I am inside and the confidence and the willingness to listen and those kinds of things all come from my family values initially. So.
Well, that's interesting because when you were talking, the good zone, you created that from the strong base that you have with family. And
I didn't say that.
Okay, you didn't say that.
No. My base does not come from the positive experiences I had with my family. As much as my heart comes from, it's what I learned about how to be in a family, to express myself in a family that could care less about not about me as a human being, as an individual, but about my needs or my struggles or what I wanted to say when everything else was going on in the family. So that's why you have to find your voice and
but
raise the
I'm talking
volume.
about the positive zone that you're talking about, whether it came from I mean, you can create a positive from a negative. That's what I'm talking about. You learned from that and you created this positive zone for yourself.
Yes.
Spiritual, I think you're going with the comfort of the family. Gave you strength. It's a value. So I'm just trying to kind of pinpoint things here. It's interesting to get into. I'm staying strictly with the RSP cycles because in the end, you're going to find some interesting things. We're all going to learn something.
I come from a very large family.
Right.
You know, we all gather together, and there are over 120 descendants from my grandparents now. It always devolves into somebody tell me a story. What's going on? What are you doing? Because we're scattered all over the globe at this point. And it's basically a story. Everybody wants to hear a story. I'm a voracious reader, so I love not only to absorb stories, but now I've got to the point where I start to write stories. The other thing I draw on is I'm an architect by trade. I design high-tech research facilities. I go all over the world doing these kind of things. And every building has a story behind it. Every one of my clients has a story behind them. When I work with my clients, I have to figure out what they do in order to put that into their buildings. Well, I do the same thing with my novels as well, so I get to go talk to
well, now you're getting into a different area.
Those are the resources that drive
What I like what you're saying, it's different, which is all part of the same thing, is that you have a large family.
Yes.
So in order to stay connected, you had to communicate to keep everybody together.
Exactly.
And gave you a resource that you brought on, that you feel that is there when you do your thing. You have that to rely on. That's a resource. The architecture comes out of that, everything. It's interesting for you to hear specifically how you describe the resource. Large family, having to communicate, telling stories. Okay, that's what I'm trying to
we all want to hear a story. Right.
But it's your large family. Now, if you had a very small family, it might be different. So I'm just trying to make a comparison there. All right, the artist, the teacher.
My source really is the world, my relationship to that world, my awareness of the world. I tell my students to never, ever, ever pass up an opportunity that the world presents to you. You ask the world to come forward that you want to come to you, and it will. And I think we're all talking about the same thing when we talk about looking in the world for stories. And my response to those are visual. I'm interested in mark making, ways of mark making that tell a story. My work is abstract, so I want.
Well, you're not answering my question. We're going to get into that. I want to know your personal resources that you have drawn from in your life for who you are, personally. That's right, you're.
Christopher, but that's what I've told, that's just what I've
No,
told you.
no, I'm
All
saying.
the larger relationships, my personal
Okay.
relationships with my wife and my
No,
family, my children.
your personal relationship with the world, you're talking about
Yes.
the world, then you suddenly, you got into the way you use that in your art, I wanna get into that.
Okay.
But I wanna know what your personal relationship is with the world that you draw from. You understand what I'm saying?
I look at the world and I respond to it.
Okay.
That's it.
The world is for you, is a resource, the whole world, which is a resource. That's all I'm trying to get at.
Yes.
Okay, because we're gonna pinpoint everything you're talking about. This is why, we've done this panel a lot with different I've done it with architects, with store owners. It's an interesting thing. You're gonna see this. So we got it here with the whole resource. I find it there's a lot of similarities, but there's a lot of differences. So, now we're moving on to the score. The score is having these experiences, how you've notated it in your own personal art form.
Storytelling for me comes from a need to tell the truth, and the story is the format and the structure that I choose to express my experiences and the truth. My formats are primarily now video and film, and radio and print,